and greetings to each and every one of you, and welcome to this episode of Soul Vibes. And for many, you know that we've changed the date of the live Soul Vibes, and I will explain a little bit about the process of how it all works in this in this way, and kind of what happened. But also, I would again like to welcome each and every one, whether you're watching this live or watching this later, into this space. And let us breathe into this space and bring our consciousness into wherever you are, whenever and wherever you are. And my name is Alexis Sersha, and with my team, we work together to, run and organize these meetings and all sorts of different things, like from master classes, from, things that run for a few months, for private sessions. For all those that are new, please check out my website and see what's on there. And also, you can always contact me if you have any questions via, there's a contact page on the website, or also social media, which a lot of people do contact me with all sorts of things. And so as we ease into this space, into the soul vibes, we feel all of the different energies of the world and what is, of all the things that are going on, and the huge and humongous changes and things that are being uncovered, of course. And, we see faces of people, organizations, and all sorts that perhaps we were under a certain impression of who they are, and now they've revealed themselves or are being revealed by others to be something completely different, or they've changed in the years, or whatever's happening there. Mainly, it is just all where this huge change is just turning upside down everything that we as individuals have thought was solid, thought was believable, thought was trustworthy, and that we could rely on and trust. And so when all of this is spot on, it is not like something that is out of alignment with spirit, so to speak. And there are certain prophecies, not specific prophecies, but the ancient prophecies of, those that have been much more connected than today's world in general, but they were much more connected to the spirit, to the heart, to their soul, that have talked about these times, so it's all right on schedule, but of course it can be very stressful for a lot of people. And I was inspired to talk about this fork that is happening at the moment. We've come to another fork in the road. But also, firstly, I wanted to say how, when working with my soul, when working with my team, which for many of you know, of course, I'm of the Michael, Archangel, many of you know as Archangel Michael. So I often will, as an Alexis, as a part of a smaller part of a greater soul being, I kind of, you'll see, step in and step out like seamlessly as I talk. I used to sort of do more specific channelings where perhaps like I would channel on behalf of my soul or on behalf of a particular entity or being for the whole duration. But this is now, in these modern times, it's a much more seamless and a much more natural way to do it. So very often, for those that are perceptive of energies, you will see that it is I, Alexis, speaking, and then seamlessly, perhaps like a different part of myself may come forward that is much, let's say, with a particular topic, is much more experienced in that, and then they step back. And also, when I say the team, I'm referring to, of course, Saint Germain, one called Yeshua, which now we sort of refer to Sananda, which is like an oversoul of whom Yeshua was part of as well. And of course, Miriam of Magdala, that many know as Mary Magdalene. And so the change of names is just to signify the differences of let's say the previous times and the differences of now. Um, because we have entered into such different times than what we've known before. So it sort of seemed very accurate and relevant to kind of make these little changes. And so when a topic or a webinar or live stream is coming up for me, normally the titles and things like that and the themes normally, let's say if it's a specific master class, will just pop in like a couple of months before, a month before. It's not something that I consciously really think about. The title just pops up, and then slowly that theme cooks. So I say it cooks because I have to get ingredients and put them all together and experience. I experience a lot of the things, and even though perhaps I experienced a certain theme before, just in my life, it will actually in the weeks, or especially the last couple of weeks before the theme, before the live stream, it kind of all comes together in a new way. So that when in the live stream, I've got the words and the energy and the ability to interpret, to actually allow that energy to flow. And then for my mind, for my ability to speak, to form words, to interpret that energy as accurately as I can. And so, there has been a couple of times in the past with my work. It's actually quite amazing and incredible, really, that majority of things really work in a very set way. We set the date, and then it all comes together perfectly. When to think about in how this new energy works, this is actually quite miraculous in its own way, that everything comes together. The story, the experience, my abilities to interpret, and my abilities also to allow that flow to be flowing as a in a big way, not just like a drip of energies, but like just allowing myself to really give in and surrender to that flow for that particular episode. But sometimes, with all that is happening, things just don't come together. And rather than perhaps, giving, like this last time, giving a half-hearted episode on the set date, it is better. And also very often, like this last time, I wouldn't even be able to, because the energy was just so messed up, basically chaotic. It's better to actually postpone, even if it's not convenient. It's better to postpone for the quality, for the all of it to come together in a way that is supposed to. And so that is the reason why for this there was a change. And I do apologize if it's been inconvenient for any of you. And I hope that, I know some people are committed to work. It's during the weekday now, and hopefully that you can enjoy the episode in your own time, as a recording. And so this too is part of how we work with the soul. It's very different, and it actually, of course, involves trust and the ability to be sensitive in so many different ways, because it is not like the function of the mind that sets everything, like, let's say, if you normally follow a human schedule, and how we're scheduled, we say, okay, in the morning at this time and this time, I'm supposed to get up, do certain things, then go to work or whatever it is, and then perform at supposedly maximum level during those 8 hours at work, then go home, do family thing, and again perform at maximum level. So these are, we discipline, we learn how to discipline and fit in with things, but working with the soul, it's a much more natural kind of way of doing things. And it's not to say that, working with soul, you don't fit in with schedules, because that would be normally, that would be quite a weird thing to say, would be too chaotic. But because soul is a co-creator and part of physicalness, and within the physicalness there are certain rhythms, and if you want to play with others within this realm, then we do need these kind of agreements as well. And so it is an artful dance, like this is how I'm kind of looking at most of the things now in my life, as an artful dance between all of these different elements that comprise our life. It is not the black and white, either this or that. It's not having to choose this side or that side or whatever. But all of the things I find are actually a dance of all the different perspectives and elements and priorities and values and rights and wrongs. And these lines keep shifting. So I kind of now perceive my own reality and on so many issues and things, the way I work with them, as an artful dance between all of these elements, not as a fixed something. And there is a definite line as a healthy boundary where, for example, something that is good, not so many things are not either good or bad. They just go into the realm of negative effect when they cross certain lines, and that line moves. But we are capable, each one of us, we are capable of dealing exactly with that, as the life, the reality as it is, in the past, and for many people still, the reality is much more fixed, and they think this is a natural, that is fixed and stable. But this is quite incorrect. And the more that, as in science, we can sort of look at quantum states and all of these kind of states, there is nothing fixed. It's all moving. It's all the reality. Physical reality is this beautiful and very scientific, artistic dance between all these different elements, from scale that we can't even see with the best electron microscopes to the large scale things, so the reality, it's not that the reality, some things reality is changing, yes, but a lot of the reality was just that we had inaccurate perception of it. Although some people, so I'm keep being amazed how, if I read ancient things, I actually find that certain people throughout our history as humanity actually were very much aware and did very well describe in their words what, for example, I'm experiencing now as a result of allowing my soul, my consciousness, the light of my being, to be more conscious and present and enlightening, making more conscious all parts of my life as a human. And as a human, I feel myself part of this large, huge, timeless being, and how to, in working out how to work with that. In some people, as I said, there were certain groups of people like Hopi, I don't know how to pronounce that properly, Hopi Indians, or like, for example, Helena Blavatsky, and all of these kind of people, and of course people that we know, Yeshua, Buddha, in their own way, in their own words, have described very accurately. Of course, if we try to go back to the essence of their teaching, rather than what some of those teaching have been distorted as. And the thing is that even with good intentions, let's say if we look at Jesus and Christianity, because many of us are within this culture, within this kind of culture, many of us present here are within this kind of culture. It is that it's not even very often that we can say, oh, someone distorted Yeshua's teaching because they were bad or they wanted to control, or even that too is true. There both things. But the issue is that as what is relating to this fork in the road, really, is that, unless you are imbued with the soul and its wisdom and all that it brings to the table in this human soul relationship and dance, the person who is not consciously or unconsciously even in touch with these timeless parts of themselves, uh, they cannot actually accurately understand what the teachers really mean. And this was brought to me super extra lately because I saw a video on YouTube by a book by Helena Blavatsky, and many of you are perhaps familiar with this lady. And even though some of her books are like too complex, there are a couple of books that are very thin and small and written in a language, even though it's a much more older language in the way they express things. But I realized, oh my gosh, this woman speaks what I'm experiencing now, and I forget what year she lived. There was photographs, so maybe 18th century, maybe, or 19th century, early, more, I think maybe 18th century. I can't remember the dates exactly, but it was when the photographs were really black and white, really those grainy, old ancient photographs, because there are some photographs of her. So, but until now, like, I'm thinking, wow, if I even though I was into spiritual things for most of my life, this lifetime, it's only now that I really understand what she's saying in certain things, even though, let's say, she's talking in a different language, because much more older language. And it's the same, like if I listen to, let's say, a Hopi Indian elder on a video or something like that, they use their own language, of course, but the essence I understand, but I now, but before may have been beautiful to me, but now I actually understand the meaning of what it actually means. And for example, similar to someone like Rumi poetry or something like that, there were these people very scattered and rare in between, like this Rumi poetry of this saint from Middle East, I believe. So I think he was Sufi. Rumi poetry. It was beautiful before to read, but it's only now that I can really understand the meaning, the essence of it, and it is because now I've actually danced or walked with my soul for a while, and so this fork, and we talked about this quite a few times. There were these points of separation before, and now it's another point of separation. And I see like a lot of other people are also speaking about this, and you probably feel it, is where it's just becoming this starkly visible, or, as to in these times, the connection with your soul is all that is going to save a person, and not save as in a traditional, Christian way, but save as in bring you back to yourself, and in being able to deal with these huge and humongous changes that we're experiencing in a sane way. Because a lot of the people, as we know, are experiencing huge anxieties and mental health illnesses and sorts of these things. And it is simply because they are not in touch with their own soul. And but for those that are, and even though, let's say, for those that work with me, I kind of speak more about percentages rather than 100% or perfection, which is a trap. So, like this soul imbuement, it's a personal, and also for me, it's kind of like works in a percentages. Like as you allow and you allow, and then certain percentage your consciousness is conscious, imbued with light, certain things happen. Certain things happen when you're 30%, 40%, 50%, 60, 70, 80, whatever percentage, that certain things, meaning they become these huge forks where there's points of or forks on the road, when there's points of separation with other people, whether it's people in general, humanity in general, but also with other people within our circles, because each journey is unique and the timeline is unique. So it's always, I mention this often, it's always you with you. So comparison is always you with you who you were before, you who are today, not me with others and trying to compare our journeys. And this has to do with, of course, the one who used to be this one, and explore, however, the story that we have exploding itself into so many unique individual parts. And we're now much more experiencing this, and we, in some groups, we call this sovereignty, individual sovereignty. And I find that even in general, public, this word sovereignty has become much more used and important in this way, and it has to do, in a spiritual sense, of course, with becoming more and more of who we, each individual, are. And the point is that all of us are unique individuals. And so that's why, comparing ourselves, sometimes it can be helpful to compare oneself with others, but we each one come into our own, slowly and surely, into our own authority. And of course, as our center becomes turned this way, rather than, looking for all of the energy and nurturance from others, we kind of anchor ourselves in our soul first. And then all the rest is like an icing on the cake. It's not that we lose connection with others, but we re-relate to everything and to everyone in a new way, in a much more, for us, a healthier way, and for others too, because we become a much more healthy individual. And so, for many, this divinity, the nature, like it's also very such a simplicity within this complexity of life. And so the main there with the divinity or soul, it's a real, however you might want to say, use this word, or which word you use, it's very simplicity, and not simplistic, it's a simplicity. So, for example, when you are human, caught in all sorts of issues, and perhaps, let's say, your own issues that you couldn't overcome, whether it's be trauma, addictions, and all of these kind of things, or diseases of the body, and all of that kind of stuff, or even just a situation, like, let's say, what, for some person, they might not be able to go out of the poverty or into the abundance, or all sorts of whatever the human issues are. There are only to a certain limit that, as a human, without this connection to a soul, that you can resolve these things. Some things can't be resolved. For example, let's say addiction, even in let's say 12 steps programs, and programs that actually work, whatever the title there are. Not that they will work for everyone that enters, because it requires the self-work, but that actually work for those that are committed. They have to do with surrendering to the higher authority, let's say in 12-step programs, for example. So even if they don't call this a soul or a God or whatever they call the words, it is this higher inner authority, which is what in I use the word soul for all of this, for this divinity. And so the role of divinity is really to, bring that extra something that helps us to resolve human problems, the problems of humanity, problems of the individual, and problems of as a species, So without soul, it is just this 3D black and white opposition, war, and the warring between the opposition, because the 3D itself, without this light of consciousness, this consciousness presence, doesn't have the resolutions. And that's how it was set up to be, so that, we connect and dissolve this inner barrier between a disconnected human and ensouled human, ensouled, insouled, or soul imbued, however that we want to say, conscious, light of conscious, enlightened human. There's so many different words to describe pretty much the same kind of thing, the same experience, that actually gets a bit distorted when people have an experience that try to explain it. And so it is based on the real tangible thing, and is based on each one of us going through this experience. And then we could truly, really talk about it and understand it and know it, because we're living it. And this imbuement is what brings the talents, the insights, the all sorts of things, whatever is needed to resolve the pressing issues. And as for humanity in the whole, so for the individuals, that, some of the issues that very often, let's say, not very often, but most of the time, are projected onto the other. Like if you look into politics, or if you look in relationship, toxic relationships, and all of these things, the relationship between male and female, is that the problems of being human, or the problems of humanity as a species on a planet, living with other species, are tossed and let's say put as a responsibility onto someone that is demonized. Like, for example, let's say one would be a very stark example is, people, let's say, they say, okay, protect the environment, so no more mining. And how do you resolve that with people and wanting to better and better conditions and develop technology and all sorts of things, and yet needing those minerals and rare minerals and stuff? And then we say, okay, it's all this horrible, really rich people that keep making mines, and it's all their fault. And yet, at the same time, we're talking on one hand, we're saying that, on the other hand, we're holding a mobile phone. So how do we reconcile that? A mobile phone which needs those mines. So the mining, let's say in this case, the mining and things, a problem of humanity, not a problem of a specific group of people. But of course, I'm not saying that the very multi-rich billionaire people are all good. It's not what I'm saying at all. It's just I'm saying that to look at is certain an issue that we as humanity have, or is it just a convenience to prop it onto whomever, depending on which side one is, as to who is demonized to carry these things that we aren't. Like I often think about this relationship, let's say, with indigenous people, or with someone that, I have experienced this personally also, and I didn't know how to reconcile. And this is again saying how, soul imbuement has to do with resolving things that are of every day. It's not some kind of far away fantasy thing. But for example, let's say I experienced this also. It's like when I love nature, and you have this most incredible spaces, but unfortunately where the energy is very strong, if you're feeling those energies, are very strong at the places where there are rare minerals. And this is where normally you'll find, not normally, but always, you'll find that, let's say, the indigenous who much more feel, were operate with the feeling and in the heart, would feel these and make those spaces, not make them, but have those spaces as sacred. And then at the same time, we have all of the benefits of what the internet and mobile phones and technology have brought. And yet, this very same technology needs those very rare minerals that are part of those sacred spaces and the most incredible natural spaces. So this is a human issue. It's not an issue just of a certain group of people. See, so but as we work, these are the things that actually then soul imbuement can slowly bring about understanding. And also the wisdom comes from working. It's not that the soul brings all of the wisdom with regards to all these specific things, but that it is here, it has chosen to embody part of itself, the human part, that then, how can I say, it's chosen to embody this human part that then experiences the resolution in this dance between the human and self, both bring about the resolution of these things to a percent, to a huge high percent, because certain things, they don't have 100% solution that would work, that would everyone would be 100% happy, and there's actually a lot of things, and these are the cosmic issues. They're not just human earth issues, so and this is also brings, this combined working and dancing of human and soul is what brings this wisdom that, to the table, this wisdom that, then, you can, it's like a nectar. And so there is definitely this wisdom that happens in this dance of the human soul in resolving these very human issues. Let's say, for example, so this was one example, because the dance of the human and soul is very based in the physical reality. It's not removed from it, because human physical reality is just fully as sacred and equal in to non-physical reality. And this was an era that, I mean, it was an era. It was just all we tried all these different things, and it's kind of like, if you try all these different things, you come into wisdom, and you say, okay, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, this was incorrect, that was correct. And this is the dance, and this is part of this, with maturity, that you accept certain things as a dance, that it's an ongoing, that isn't like 100%, solution or fixed thing, or something that is never going to be unmovable, because we are now in this dynamic. We've become more and more aware of the dynamic nature of who we really are. So when you look at it from this point of view, from this perspective, then you realize how much trouble those that are continue to be disconnected actually are, because they can't really find and why they would look at future depressed and with fear and with all of these things. Firstly, because they are just so on one-sided that they are not, that they fear the other. When you integrate both, you realize it doesn't matter which side wins or whatever, that you'll find in either. Firstly, because you see good sides and not so good sides in either, so you find in either side. And secondly, also because, and this is where this point of separation is really stark, very visible, is that, as a creator, each one of us, individual, unique creators, as we keep, as I keep, let's say, owning certain things, as I become aware of something, I then work through it, and then I own it. And that separates me from the other, another person, humanity, or whatever. And not in a negative way, in a way that creates division, but it's in a way of that a healthy boundary becomes where, is created, where before there was no boundary at all. It was all more enmeshed. If you know what enmeshment means, it means that, two things are interconnected in an unhealthy ways. And so when they separate in a more healthy way, this dynamic boundary gets created. And this is the point of being, of sovereignty, of being a free sovereign being, is that you keep creating this healthy, dynamic, movable, porous boundary, not a boundary made of steel and stone that is fixed, but is one that moves and changes as you move and change, as the life keeps moving and changing, but it always is filled with healthiness, with wholeness, because I'm whole and my boundaries are whole. And it's not even dependent on another person being whole. They can actually be very unwell. They can be toxic and stuff. And I, as a let's say, if I'm practicing my wholeness, being my wholeness, then I can make decisions that support that, and that support the wholeness. And out of that wholeness, I can make decisions with regards to that other person, whether I can allow them to be in my life, or if, let's say, I can't move away physically or something, that I can find like a way, a satisfactory way that works with that, And so the point of separation now is again this one, to own. We're asked to own our creatorship, our creator abilities, that, that each one of us takes responsibility and the freedom. They both work hand in hand. There is no freedom without responsibility and maturity, and there is no and and responsibility without freedom is just a chore. Freedom without responsibility doesn't exist, because responsibility means that I take responsibility for what I own, for what I feel, for what I think, for what I focus on. We just recently did this workshop on point of focus, and this focus as to what perceptions and what future I focus on is then what I create and co-create for myself and co-create with others as a part of, let's say, humanity, or the living beings on this planet, and in the universe, and however far you want to take this. And so this separation now, this really is again with, because people also on this continual journey, I find that, let's say, if we say spiritual community, even though for me now this word is just to define something and be able to express something, but in my personal life, this division between spiritual and non-spiritual is nonsensical. It's gone away for me. Like, all of my life is spiritual or non-spiritual, whatever you call it. So there isn't that I can say, oh, now I'm going to a spiritual group, or now I'm going to speak with spiritual people, and then when I go somewhere else, this is a non-spiritual people, even though we still, for these kind of purposes, we still need certain words to describe, but it's just words to describe certain things. It's not really a lived reality anymore for me. Nothing is more spiritual or less spiritual, because it, like, once you're whole, once you feel yourself as whole, it makes no sense to be making these decisions, just kind of separations of your life because all life is sacred, and all of your life is sacred, and all your day is sacred, and everything in it is sacred. But there is a very important ability then, of course, to discern who is, I don't know, whole or healthy, who behaves in a healthy way, or who is trying to, let's say, feed off you, or all of these kind of things. So it's not by throwing the ability to discern away, because the ability to discern is not judgment. It is discernment that comes from maturity. You have to even be more discerning as ever before to be able to, and these things change, like, the groups change, who represents what change, and has changed. Things that were considered a good progressive thing 10 years ago in between have changed to now be a thing of pulling back into the 3D, into that low vibration 3D space. And so this is like a very dynamic thing. And when you are imbued with your soul, you can handle this, even though, part of handling this, and you can surf on it and with it and be excited about it. There's so many incredible and exciting things about these times. But I need the abilities that the soul and this dance, this communion of human and soul brings, and all of the work that we've done, which meaning that, I've made peace with myself. I've integrated and fell in love with both my feminine and my masculine side. And so I also then fell in love with other people, whether masculine or feminine, but this was not always so. And this is also one of the attributes of feeling, that attribute of living a soul-filled life is that, let's say, if you look at me 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I was a very different person. There was at the front, let's say, a very damaged, wounded being, but the soul part, or these parts, were always as pure then as they are now, that guided me, that protected me through that journey, in even these wounded parts, to come into healing, to come into forgiveness, acceptance, responsibility, and all of these things that are needed. And so when you look at then, again, when you look at people that have not, choosing not to allow soul into their life and do the work that is needed to come into this space, then they are very lost. And you are, then it's not surprising that they have these incredible mental health issues, and will be more. And this is again the point of separation, of people that are souled, infused with soul, and people that are not. But again, the difference is not in the abilities, because this soul infusion is not dependent on someone living in a Western world or non-Western world, or having certain, being born, can be born in a slum, can be born any color, any gender, or anything, can be born anywhere on the planet, because this is inside. The soul is all inside. And it doesn't matter whether it's a rich or poor, or very often people say, that being rich and having everything available actually is a big prevented, big barrier to to the journey. But it's not also, so and people, this being conscious and being integrated to whatever percentage of this mind and heart integration it doesn't mean, again, that the person has to be involved with so-called spiritual things, because people get through same kind of insights and integration through all sorts of methods. And of course, like, if you sort of take the spiritual tools, it can help. But, now these tools are everywhere. If you ask anyone on the street what meditation means, or they would probably be able to tell you, or mindfulness, if it's, not misused. So it really is more and more stark, more and more obvious that that a person's choice, it makes the difference. And this I too don't really understand at this stage, or have any insight as to why a soul being would create and manifest itself as a human and then choose not to participate, or whether they're just waiting to be reborn as in a new body, in a young body, and then be part of course, they would then have to be much more part of the new energies, because children are intrinsically adapted to these times, which we were also, us that at all different ages, we were adapted and born into the times we were born in. And those times were different than our parents' times, and the parents were adapted to the times they were born, and so forth. And so, like there are some things that are okay to not really have answers to or insights as of the moment. I can speak about myself, and mostly also about those people's journey that, for example, let's say, are becoming more and more conscious and allowing themselves to be more and more conscious in their life. I know what their journey is because I can speak with the experience. I can see the result and can relate to people that are unconscious, because you can kind of, I've had that part of my human self that was very unconscious and separated and wounded, but I can't relate to not those people not choosing then to allow the consciousness. And this is between, because I haven't lived that. So I don't know. I mean, there are so many reasons why I wouldn't choose, but because it's hard work and you have to take responsibility and you have to look at your shadow and all of that. But still, the benefits are undescribable. The benefits are cosmic, so for me it's a no-brainer, really, that I would keep choosing to, even if I procrastinated longer times, and in this journey many times, I procrastinated, but still, I was still on this journey. I knew sooner or later I will then move to the next level in my own journey into the next. But so I can't relate to why some people would say no. So there are many theories, and we can kind of, talk and ponder about this. And there will come a time, I say, when this will be much more understood. And maybe there are other people that already have much more insight into this. I know that there are many theories and many people say all sorts of things, but I so far have not found some uh, like this theory or explanation that would accurately explain what that I would say, yeah, this rings really true, that so for me, but for me, I'm okay with just leaving things unexplained in a mystery for a while. And also, of course, there is a big thing also, which also I'm talking from experience, that, let's say, 30 years ago, certain people in my life, let's say family members or friends, that they were completely, I could say, oh my gosh, these people are never going to enter or open up to. And then I was very much proven wrong when they have, and perhaps even have leaped forward, if you know what I mean, like in a much more depth than me, in their own way and in their own certain specialities and stuff. So it is a very complex world in this way. and there is a much bigger picture, and it's okay to be and not understand certain things beyond just knowing that, every human being that is a true human being, um, because now with tech and AI and all sorts of things, we're going into sort of different experience. And also some people kind of talk about walk-ins, and some people, say there are certain people that are not soul beings and stuff like that. I don't have expertise to talk in that way. I haven't really met that I can say someone that I can say, wow, this person has no soul. I met people that are very unconscious. Whether they have sold, and I don't, this is beyond my knowledge. But that again, it's okay, as long as people, I think, like, it's okay to be in this space where you can admit, and this is part of being authentic and true, and say clearly, this is beyond my expertise, and I don't yet have experience in this, and this is much more honest and true than, pretending to know everything, which is a very, fake position, really, and it shows, like, in on a person. It doesn't look good on a person. And these days we see much more of this, and it's much more stark and obvious. I keep using this word stark, but it's so true. It's so obvious now, these things. And again, it's not personal, and it's not emotion stirring, it's not triggering. Like, less and less of these things in other people, for me, for example, personally, are triggering for me. So I can kind of look into places and spaces and ideas and perspectives of people much further than I ever was before, because now so much is like, okay, this is belongs to another person, because I have this much more healthy barrier boundaries that I can kind of with ease and grace, really, and neutrality, look at and go much further, because people's ideas and beliefs don't trigger me. While, you see so many people almost unhinged with how they get triggered by certain other people, and how they just go into this craziness because they get so triggered by what other people say. But for me, I may not like what another person say, but it's just neutral to me, because I know it belongs to them. It doesn't belong to me. And I am my own ideas and my own values and my own perspectives are the ones that have influence on my future, regardless of these other people, regardless of the government choices, regardless of all of these things. Because as more and more of my own self is existing in this sovereignty of myself, then I am the one, the creator of my own reality, my own future, my own experiences. And so other people's stuff don't trigger me anymore. I may not like some of the things. I think some of the things that exist within humanity are absolutely barbaric. I even, but some things even disgust me. I mean, there's certain treatment of children and things like that, and of course the animals and things like that, absolutely, I think are disgustingly barbaric, and I don't hide from that for myself. And then, I place it on the people that do those behaviors towards others. But it's not, how can I say, triggering, and I'm shocked, and I wish that these kind of things wouldn't happen. But I don't anymore take it as my own responsibility, co-responsibility for things that I don't participate in, because because I have cleared my woundedness and all of these things. And perhaps I never was in, at least not in this life, at that level, of barbarity, really, when you look at what is happening behind, the secret doors, especially with the most vulnerable in our world. And so it doesn't trigger me in the same way as what it used to, but it actually allows me to feel, also to see it for what it is, and also to place the energy of that onto the people that do participate in that, and they haven't done what is needed to resolve it. And for some, the people that I think all of it is redeemable. I mean, I don't think that all of it can be, let's say, forgiven. If someone has murdered people, they might have to spend this lifetime in prison, even though that in between they may come to self and allow soul. They might still have to finish in prison this lifetime, because we can forgive them, but they may still have to complete their sentence for what they've done in the unconscious. This is between human and soul. And so I find that these times are much clear, so super, extremely clear on all of these things, that um, and 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 also not triggering in a and especially not traumatizing, because the presence of the soul just brings this wholeness. And as I said, it is some things that are coming to light are just as shocking to me as they are to any other person, but they are not something that would trigger my woundedness because I've healed that woundedness. They also don't trigger forgiveness, automatic forgiveness, because until that person does the work, like, what is there to forgive if they haven't done the work and they would do it again? And yet that forgiveness has to come from their own self. And let's say if it comes by the time they reach that space within them where they can allow their own forgiveness from their own soul, they would have been incredibly changed by then, And so, in the world of where we had so many lifetimes and all sorts of different experiences, and we've participated in such 3D horriblenesses and woundingness and wars and torturingness and all these kind of things, there isn't anything that is not redeemable, but it needs that work, and so everything can be redeemed, because otherwise, there wouldn't be a hope for any one of us, because we, as I said, we each one have participated in many, many lifetimes, so there, all of these kind of things are like really beautiful, dynamic, full of wisdom and full of that nectar, and also of open, clear eyes to be able to see it all. And so again, with because many people of the heart, they have, as we have a history of all of us to sort of try to help everyone else, but there is much more wise and mature way to look at all of these things, and to be able to just let it go into the hands of the soul, my stuff of my soul, another person's stuff of their soul, and trust that they know what they're doing within their life, and that it makes a sense and a reason to them, to their relationship with its conscious or unconscious within them. But it certainly does make it much harder, much more painful to navigate these times of change. And these too were foretold and foreshadowed by ancients, those that I mentioned before. It is just when you can find and understand their language and the meaning, then it becomes so apparent. Not that they predicted every event and every whatever happened, and and the president and this and that, but they were able to predict the essence or the gist of the happenings, and within also the mm, predictable movement of our solar system and the planets, like let's say in these ancient arts and sciences like astrology and things like that. If let's say if you're into astrology, you can you can predict. Now we have, of course, computers, and if you have a chart or something, you can say, okay, show the planetary movements for year 3000, let's say, and it would show you because they predict, they move in a certain way. But now, as I said, we have computers, so it is quite incredible that the people of the ancient times had their own science in a different way, that they were able to predict the movements of accurate movements of our solar system. So, for people who kind of say, oh, we thought that the solar system was flat 500 years ago. We thought, or that the solar system was flat. You have to look at who they mean by this we. People that were in a suppressed dark ages in a certain continent was that we, but that we didn't include all these other peoples that were in a very different time and few thousand years ago, with all of these knowledge and stuff, and how also that plays with these new understandings of soul beings, that there is no time and space, and it's all at the same time, like a buffet table. So this too is one of those what seemingly contradictions. How do you speak about the past and the ancients and 5,000 years ago, when at the same time, how does this work with? I mean, there is a feeling to this, how this works, but not all of the things are still yet able to be put into words yet. And that too is okay, so, because we're becoming much more masters of feeling and experience and emotion, and all of these information, wholesome information packets, so to speak. They include all of these, but the words are very limited as to how to portray that knowledge, how to explain those delicate and fine, refined feelings that we have when we are infused as a soul being. We are infused with our soul, with our divinity. And this is this also is this where we are. We are in a place where we are exploring what all of this means. What does it mean to be a soul being? How the effect it has. So this too is our job, so to speak, our work, that is fun and beautiful and incredible and exciting, an adventure that has not been tried on this physical plane before. So this too is a lot of unknown on all of this, and it's our job. This is why we're here, to experience this unknown, to see, to change, to be dynamic with it, and then to reap the nectar of wisdom that comes from that. And this too is much more now, to me at least, understandable in a much more clear way as to what I've ever had this understanding of these things before. And so in many ways, for me, it feels that, this maturity, I've matured in the last few years, and what used to be naive ideas, and nothing wrong with that time. It was an incredible time, and also was escapism, part of it, into the etheric realm. So a lot of us, involved with the spiritual movements, were very involved, this escapism into the world of fantasy, world of ideas and art in a non-physical way. And it's also part of, as those that are involved with trauma and all of that, is part of the survival tactics, that helps a person to survive through those difficult times, is to be living in this world of fantasy or etheric, but the world of spirituality really today is to become, of course, embodied, and to embody and to bring into physical and manifest and learn how to work with the physicalness and come back, bring back all of those parts that were lost, that we tried to kill off, that from that world into also the physical, for we realize that both etheric and physical worlds are equal within the soul. There is not one better or worse. They're equal. They're different, but uniquely different, but equal, and it's in working together that you can, then be whole again. It's whole. Being whole means you have the etheric world, the world of imagination, the world of physicalness. Not that all entities have chosen the physical life, there is a much huger world, existence, if you will, out there, that is beyond, and that we are vast beings. Our souls are vast beings, and this, even though it's huge, this physical world is huge to a human part, there is this huge worlds that are non-physical, that have never tried a physical existence. And this is not to diminish the physicalness, because there is this tendency that, we have these words, bigger, better, all these kind of things, but in the language of the soul, they're meaningless, these kind of perspectives, because the soul, you as a soul, it's all, you consider yourself equal of all parts of who you are, because to think less of some parts of yourself is actually very 3D. It's unwell. It's toxic, what we call toxic, and all of that that entails, like we in the 3D, not that some people, that's again, it's that distinction, like when you look at some people, yeah, you can say definitely some people are better at certain sports, at certain this, at certain that. Some people are taller, some people are shorter. These are the real differences, the uniqueness. It is the value judgment that actually, that actually makes this askew, because we've tried both ways. We've tried, first it was like, these differences, and we think, some people are better and some people are worth more, and all of these kind of things based on whatever values were appreciated in particular time or particular place. And then in some places it's gone the other way, where it was tried to eliminate and pretend the unique things don't exist, and that has gone into a very toxic kind of culture, and it didn't work very well either, to go from one extreme to the next. And that's that beautiful essence of this physical reality, isn't it? It is that it is this dance between all these perspectives, and there's this central line of yourself that can dance with all these perspectives and create these boundaries, and then decide for yourself, okay, this has been crossed the line onto this side, this has been crossed, the line has been crossed onto this side, and all of these kind of things, and there isn't like 100% for, as I mentioned before, 100% solution. It's probably a big, it's a big trap that can entrap someone for a long, long time, in their perspective and ideas, and can get stuck in there. And so, again, if you keep choosing to work with yourself and your soul in your own unique way, this is all really that is needed in these times. And that's, again, that fork in the road into your own sovereignty, into your own ownership of your own being a creator, and more parts of yourself, on this path, on this journey, more and more parts of yourself you bring home, and you bring home, and you own, and you bring into this sovereignty, rather than being projected onto the other, whether they're good or bad parts, or whatever one thinks good or bad parts. And so you keep making this fork. The fork's a part of this journey of soul being, that you keep these points of separation are part of this, because you keep creating this boundary, healthy, wholesome boundary of your own sovereignty. And this too it's a dynamic place. It's not like a fixed, it's not like a fixed place inside of you. It's a dynamic place that, as you experience more, you just get more wisdom, and it's just natural way of being. A lot of things all things really in nature are a reflection of this wisdom, these kind of timeless wisdom. So and so this dynamic nature of things and continual movement of things is part of it. Even though certain things, of course, they look solid, rocks and things, and if you bump into a wall, you know that it's solid. But we know with science now that at atomic level, it's vibrating, it's moving, so it isn't as solid as what we always thought. And so all of these things are, food for thought, food for dynamic thought, meaning, with your heart and your mind whole, including all of yourself, and more, because we're not finished 100% in anything. And at the same time, we are. This is again that dichotomy. Maybe that's not how you say it, but I know how to write it. It's that what looks like an opposition, contradiction rather, but it's not really that. In who we are 100% already perfect, and at the same time, we are never complete. Both things are true at the same time. And so I think we've come to the end. And so thank you again to each and every one. And I would like to, again, thank you for your presence and for your continual support. And these soul vibes they just continue to expand, and where we explore all of these different things. And yes, I would like to invite you to the next one. And until then, namaste.